In this video, I'm going to talk about the updates to the native SLAYER Max Propel for 2022 that they just announced at the Bassmaster Classic. And if this is your first time here, my name is Ryan. I'm the host here on RHINOjoe Outdoors, and I love fishing, kayak fishing, and all that. And just for your knowledge, I owned one of the original native SLAYER Max Propels whenever it first came out. And I made multiple videos about that kayak and my impressions with it. And overall, I really enjoyed the kayak, but there were some problems with it. So let's check this out together and see what those changes are for 2022. And this video that they announced it on was on Instagram, so I pulled it off Instagram, made a recording, and we're going to watch it together, and then I'm going to comment as they go through the video.
Hey everybody, I'm Tyler Brown with Native Watercraft, and we're here at the 2022 Bassmaster Classic Expo, and we're super excited to show off our brand new for 2022 SLAYER Propel 12.5 Max. So I'm going to walk through a little bit of the differences between this version and the previous version from bow to stern. We'll start right here. Really nice shedding of water off the bow when you're in heavy chop, funnels right off the front. Nothing really has changed with the hatch area. Great storage for your battery, through-hole scupper for your transducer for your fish finder, bucket up front, 2 horizontal rod storage here.
Those two things aren't super huge to me. I mean, that front hatch area, I absolutely loved it. I did do a video where I modified it and added an extra bit of sealant to it, and I will link that video at the end, and it really helped keep that area extra dry. And then you also have like that little bit of extra drainage to try to help keep some of the water from pooling in that area.
Moving back is where you'll see the biggest difference with the new Max.
Pause right there. So one thing he doesn't mention here is the little clips that help hold your drive in place. And if you look right there, it has a little loop to where you can actually put your finger in and pull. And that was another one of the updates that they made in a past update to update those grips, because man, they were super tough to get open and close, especially when the kayak was new and when it's extremely cold out. It could be a bugger to try to get those open. So that's another update that he doesn't mention here from the original, which is the one that I had.
We've really taken the best of the Max 10 and applied it here. So you've got the under seat storage drawer integrated now with the Max 12.5. This thing is awesome. Quick access to baits and tools. Got rotomolded in tool storage for your fish grips, pliers. Now the seat's on the track, and we've got dual electronics panel plate switches here. So quick mounting of switches, and you don't have to drill into the boat.
So there are several things in there that are super huge to me. The first one is going to be having the ability to have the plates on either side of the kayak to where you can have some through-hull connections, switches, and stuff like that to mount your fish finder, have switches for lights and stuff. On the original one, it was only on the right-hand side of the boat, and I actually ended up switching. I originally had my sonar on the right-hand side, and I'm right-handed, so every time I would cast, I had a big old Helix 10 mega side imaging there. I would hit it whenever I'd cast, so I actually put it on my left-hand side, and I had to route all the wires like under the seat and everything, and it's not the cleanest look. It worked for me, but this is really going to help with that, because then you're going to have that plate on either side to be able to use. Super cool. One thing he does not talk about here is that seat. The seat is super comfortable, and I absolutely love that seat. You could spend a whole day out on the water and enjoy your day on the water and not have a bunch of pain. You can always add padding to it. Some people complained about the seat squeaking some, but I never really had that issue. One thing that I really like about the update is the addition of that under seat storage, where you have the pull-out tray and you don't have that big tray base that sits down in there. I liked the ability to have the elevated and lowered seat with the tray base, but it was really big and bulky, and whenever you wanted to take that out, it was a giant hunk of plastic and seat that you had to take out of the kayak, and I felt like there could have probably been a better way. The other cool thing is how the seat is actually mounted in the kayak. So before, with that seat base, it was kind of difficult sometimes to line up the thumb screws with the inserts down in the kayak to get the kayak seat base attached to the kayak. I know that sounds really confusing, but anybody that owned that kayak would understand. This system that they have now is much more user-friendly, and it's going to be a lot easier to take that seat on and off of the kayak. Probably also going to be a lot more stable than what the old system was. Really happy with those updates.
Coming back further, Scuppers throughout, great support on the deck. We've raised the deck up just a bit, so it's a drier ride compared to the previous version.
This one right here is huge because I love the kayak, I love the pedal drive, I really enjoyed fishing out of it, but my main issue was the fact that you could not take out the scupper plugs and have a dry ride. Now, if you're asking, what is a scupper for? Well, the purpose of a scupper in a sit-on-top kayak is so that whenever you are fishing or whatever, let's say you have a wave come over the bow, that your whole hull doesn't get full of water. That's one of the disadvantages of having a sit-inside kayak, is if it rains, you get a bunch of splash water inside there, you're sitting in a pool of water. That's the whole purpose of having a sit-on-top kayak with scuppers, is that you get a dry ride even when you get waves over it, or if it's really raining heavy, it should stay as a relatively dry ride as far as like having water pooling in the kayak. If you took the scupper plugs out of this kayak, you had water coming in. A lot of times when I would try to stand up and fish with the scupper plugs out, I would get water just gushing into the floor well of the kayak. It wasn't a huge deal for me because 9 times out of 10 in the wintertime I kept the scupper plugs in, and in the summertime whenever I would take the scupper plugs out, I usually was in sandals or Crocs or something like that, and I really didn't care that my feet got wet. But throughout the day, having your feet wet all day can kind of get a little bit annoying. But it's more of like, really to me, a safety factor. If you're wanting to use this kayak in the ocean or like really wavy areas, or you're wanting to use it in like some heavy rains, like this is really going to pay off.
And we got the power pole on the back. We've got some exciting news on a rudder too coming up here shortly. Stay tuned, and if you're here at the expo, come by and see us. Thanks.
So the rest of that power pole, they already had the mount for the power pole and a motor and all that stuff, but a different rudder is kind of interesting. I'm kind of interested to see what that's going to be. I guess they're going to announce that eventually, but probably something that has a little bit better of a turning radius or something like that. I never really had a problem with how well the kayak turned, and it really, I can't imagine it really turning any better, so it'll be interesting to see what they come out with. Overall, what are my thoughts? So one, I think this shows that Native Watercraft is really listening to their end users. I think a lot of people complained about some of these issues, and they made a lot of really good improvements to the kayak that I think are really going to impact the end user and make it a much more enjoyable experience. So number 2, if you have the current version or an older version, what are my thoughts? Should you upgrade? Should you trade in? Should you sell yours and get this one? And guys, that's a lot of personal choice. I think the upgrades on this kayak make it well worth investing in one of the newer ones, but really a lot of that depends on you. Like, I would say the biggest issue is the whole wet versus dry ride with the height of the deck. So if you're one of those guys that it doesn't really bother you, when you go out, you keep the scupper plugs in, you use a sponge or like a turkey baster to keep your footwell clear of water, then I say, you know what, keep your old kayak. I wouldn't worry about upgrading. I would say that this makes me more likely that if I were to get back into one of these kayaks, that I would really consider it more now with the upgrades they made to the kayak. Consider checking out one of these other videos about the Native SLAYER Max Propel. Should help you out if you're looking at that kayak. And as always, guys, don't forget, get outside, do something awesome, and take somebody with you if you get a chance. And I'll see you in the next one. Drink some coffee.